Okay, so let's continue. So if we don't know the number 20 in this sentence, like the underlined part, so we use 多少 to ask in this case. Okay, so 你们班有多少个学生? How many students are there in your class? 你们班有多少个学生? So anyone can tell the difference between 几 and 多少. So both 几 and 多少, right? Both 几 and 多少, like we use them to ask numbers in Chinese, which means how many and how much. But there's a very essential difference between them. Okay. So as you can see, 几 like ask number 4, right? Four people, right? And 多少, comparatively, we use 多少 to ask the number of 20. So there's a major difference between them. So 几, okay, 几 used to ask numbers that are expected less than 10. Okay, so when you ask a number, you will have a kind of expected answer. Like when we ask family members, in most cases, there are less than 10 people in one family, right? So we use 几口人, 几口人. And comparatively, 多少 is used to ask numbers that are expected more than 10. Okay, so for family members, usually we don't use 多少口人 because according to common sense or according to most common cases, so maybe there are less than 10 people in one's family. So we use 你家有几口人 instead of 你家有多少口人. Okay, but for one's class, so in most cases, there will be more than 10 students in one class, right? So in this case, we use 你们班有多少个学生 instead of 你们班有几个学生 because in most cases, there will be more than 10 students in one class, right? So we use 多少 instead of 几 in this case. So this is the major difference between 几 and 多少, okay? So 几 ask numbers that are expected less than 10. And 多少 in comparison, so 多少 is used to ask numbers that are expected more than 10. Okay, so this is the difference between 几 and 多少. Okay, and 几, both 几 and 多少 are very common used interrogative pronoun in Chinese. Okay, let's come back to the text 3. The last one, okay? So the last one is talking about one's class, okay? Let's first listen to the recording of the new words and expressions of text 3, okay?
课文3生词
你们班多少个学生？我们两。
学生，我们两。Okay, so the first one is quite simple, right? We have learned the suffix 们, right? So we know how does this where does this pronoun come from, right? So we have you, singular you. In Chinese, we say 你, and then we attached a suffix 们 to 你 to form a plural you. Okay, so 你们, not just one person, several people, several persons. Okay, this is 你们. And next one, class, group, or team. In Chinese, we say 班. 你们班means your class. Okay, your class. And 多少, how much, how many. Okay, we just finished learning 多少. And we make comparison between 几 and 多少. So 多少 is used to ask numbers that are expected more than 10. Okay, 多少. And next one, 个 is a measure word. As you can see, this M stands for measure word. So 个 is the most common used measure word in Chinese. Don't forget this. So especially in spoken Chinese, we can use 个 before all the noun, almost every noun. Okay, so this is very common used. Okay, so not in the strict sense we can use 个 for all the noun. Okay, so this is most common used. And next one, student, 学生 we learn how to say college student, right? 大学生, so there's non-neutral tone syllable. But in the 学生, the second syllable, 生 here is read as a neutral tone. Okay, so 学生. And in 大学生, the last one, 生 is read as the first tone. Okay, so there's a tiny difference between the two words. Number 6, 我们, so similar to 你们, 我们 is we and us. Okay, and next one is 两, it's a number 2. Okay, number 2. And anyone remember we have learned another way to say 2 in Chinese, right? When we learn Pinyin, we learn this 儿, and 二. So 二 means 2 also, right? So as you can see, there are two way to say 2, right? There are two methods to say the number 2 in Chinese, which is 二 and 两. And later we'll make comparison between 二 and 两. Okay? So first, let's come into the text 3. Okay? Listen to the recording and try to repeat.
课文
琳娜，你们班有多少个学生？16个。你们班有几个法国人？我们班有2个法国人。你们班有韩国人吗？有。有几个韩国人？有4个韩国人。
Okay, let's read again. And this time, please read after me. Okay? So 朱云 says, 琳娜，你们班有多少个学生？ What's the meaning of this sentence? 琳娜, your class have how many students? Right? This is a literal translation, which means 琳娜, how many students are there in your class? Right? And 琳娜 answered 16个. Okay, 16个, 16. Right, 16. 朱云 asks, 你们班有几个法国人? So literal translation, your class have how many French people? Which means, how many French are there in your class? Yes, how many French are there in your class? 你们班有几个法国人? So here we use 几, right? So compared to the first question, 你们班有多少个学生? According to common sense, usually, as we said, there will be more than 10 students in one group, in one class. So that's why Zhu Yun used 多少 in her question. And then, for this case, for the French, so maybe Zhu Yun think there will be less than 10 French people in one class. So that's why Zhu Yun uses 几个 instead of 多少, right? 几个法国人. Okay, and Lina answered, 我们班有2个法国人. Like our class, we class have 2 French people. So which means there are two French in my class, right? And don't forget the measure word 个 in between the numeral and noun. Okay, so numeral, measure word, and noun structure is very basic structure in Chinese. And Zhu Yun asked again, 你们班有韩国人吗? Your class have Korean? So are there Korean in your class? Right? And Lina answered, 有. Yes, we have Korean. And Zhu Yun asked, 有几个韩国人? How many Korean are there in your class? And Lina answered, 有4个韩国人. So there are 4 Korean in my class. Okay, 4个韩国人. So here is about the comparison between 几 and 多少, right? As we see 几 and 多少, so they use in different cases, right? So for the numbers, if you expect the answer will be less than 10, then you use 几 in your question. And if you think the answer will be more than 10, according to your expectation or according to common sense, then in your question you use 多少 instead of 几 in this case. Okay. And also there's a small note about the number 2 in Chinese. So let's quickly go through this part. Okay. So in Chinese, we have 2 ways of saying 2, the number 2 in Chinese. So the first one, as we have learned, is 二, and the second way is 两. We just learned 两, right? As Lina answered, 我们班有2个法国人. There are 2 French in my class. 2个法国人. So Lina didn't answer with 2个法国人. Right, so here is the point we need to pay attention to. So let's make a summary. Let's make a summary about how to say 2 in Chinese. So the first way is 二, and in this case we say 二 directly. Okay, so when we are counting or reading numbers, right, like 1, 2, 3, 2, 22, in this case also. Right? So when you are counting or reading numbers, we directly say 2 in this case. But in this case, if 2 plus a measure word, right? Like 2 in this 2 plus a measure word. In this case, this 2 is read as 两. So please pay attention to this case. Okay. So also we can say it in this way, like a 2 before a measure word. A 2 before a measure word is read as 两, not 2 in this case. For example, 2 students. In Chinese we say 两个学生. We don't say 2个学生. Okay? And also this example, 2 teachers. In Chinese we say 两个老师. We don't say 2个老师. Okay, so please pay attention to. So there are different ways and in different cases that we choose to say either 2 or 两. Okay, so when you're counting or reading numbers, we directly say 2 in this case. But if 2 is put before a measure word, in this case, this 2 is pronounced as 两 instead of 2. Okay, like 两个学生,两个老师. Okay. So here is the point we need to pay attention to, okay? And also, please answer the question for the text 3. There are only 2 short questions. The first one, 林娜的班有多少学生? So first, how would you translate this question? 林娜的班有多少学生? How would you translate this question? So how many students are there in Lina's class? Right? Then I think you can answer by yourself. And number 2, 林娜的班有几个法国人? Right? So how to translate? So how many French are there in Lina's class? And also I think you already pay attention to. So in these 2 questions, like we use different interrogative pronoun. Right? The first question we use 多少 because the expected answer would be more than 10. And the second question we use 几 instead of 多少 because for only French students, maybe there will be less than 10 people in one class. So that's why we choose the interrogative pronoun 几, not 多少 in this case. Okay, so today's homework, okay, it's homework for Wednesday, okay, for Wednesday. So you can neglect the first part. This is the homework for Monday. We have already give it to you, okay? So today's homework, the homework for Wednesday, is on textbook page 47, okay? It's exercise number 2, 3, and 4, okay? Number 2 is choose the proper words to fill in the blanks. It's 个 and 口, okay? So 个 is a very common use, and 口 especially used for family members, okay? And number 3, make questions with 几 or 多少, okay? So there are like 4 dialogues, and you can make questions according to the answer, okay? And number four is complete the following dialogues. Okay, so also similar to the last homework. Okay, so please pay attention. This homework is also an oral assignment. Okay, so you don't have to submit any written material. You don't have to write down the homework. Please answer the questions directly and make recordings. Okay, so it's an oral assignment. Please read all the text of the exercise, including your answers, and make 3 recordings. I mean, exercise 2, 3, and 4. So please make 3 recordings respectively and submit through the Chaoxing system. Okay, so this is today's homework. You need to submit homework, and it's a recording. It's an oral homework. Okay, that's all for this week. I'll see you next week.